Even the
Here
biologists
we are
are a
at the
little
fish
concerned
camp.
about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop next to this fish
Camp.
field. We are going to learn more about fish camp, the use of the salmon by the people along the rivers, and we're going to learn that from a young lady who's knowledgeable and represents her Athabascan Indian culture very well. So you give a nice good morning greeting. I'll say Nanda Noja to Stacy.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Stacy, and I'm Degaton Athabascan. I was born and raised in Fairbanks, but my family originates from a village called Holy Cross, and that's about 550 river miles away from here. My mother and my grandmother grew up in a village called Nenana, and that's only about 60 miles downriver from here.
Well, having that sort of experience on the river, we talked here about Fish Camp, which represents a temporary settlement, but what are the functions of these little settlements, these particular buildings we're looking at?
All right, well, the main focus of Fish Camp is this fishville you see right in front of you. Over there against the trees, those are the canvas wall tents, and those are where people would sleep. And right next to me, this is the drying rack, and we would hang the salmon here before we would move it into the smokehouse. And the smokehouse is the structure right behind me here. Right next to that is the cache, and that's where we would store goods and supplies to keep them off the ground and away from animals. And you can see some boxes over by the tents and closer to the trees. Those are actually dog houses. And those are what we would place the dog houses around the fish camp to act as an alarm system in case any bears or intruders were to come into the area.
Well, what is the cultural significance of Fish Camp to the people?
I really am sorry about all the
Well, each
shaking
summer
of the
families
camera.
can travel up to 40 miles away
People
from their
won't
village
stop
to their
bumping into
respective
me.
family's fish camp. And there they would spend the entire summer fishing for, bonding with their families as well. And they would have to catch enough fish to supply their families as well as their dog teams, which can be up to 20 dogs. And those dogs can eat up to a fish a day. So it was very important to make sure you had enough food to last you and your family and your dog team throughout the winter.
Now, you've got a salmon right there on the table in front of you, and you mentioned as we were going by, that's a chum salmon.
Yes, this is a 9-pounder, and we actually get 3 different types of salmon that run up and down the Chena. We get a single run of the kings, a single run of the silvers, and 2 runs of the chum salmon. So we usually reserve these guys for the dogs.
Now, what she's done here is, what she was doing when we went by earlier, she kind of pre-prepared this. So she's filleted the salmon by cutting the 3 layers, basically. The fillets on either side, leaving the fillets connected at the tail. She's got the head and the viscera and the backbone all still connected right there. And she will remove that. And the backbone can be dried, used as food for the dogs in winter or fed to them in the summer. And the head, it makes good fish head soup, which is preferred by the seniors or the elders. The viscera can be fed to the dogs or put into the water to attract other fish. And then she scores the meat diagonally right down the skin. You see that? And that's to open it up, create surface area so it'll dry, get the water out of it so that it won't sour, and then it will be smoked. And there you can see how it opens up, lots of surface area, nicely done. How about that? Not a single finger left her hands while she did that. Sharp knife you're working with there, young lady. What do you do next to make that into a proper dog food?
Well, right now I'm going to hang it on the drying rack, and this will probably only be out here for about an hour or so until it gets a nice glaze or tacky texture. It can stay on the drying rack for about an hour up to a day, depending on the weather. And then we're going to move it into the smokehouse after it does get the glaze on it. And then it's going to probably stay in there for about 2 weeks. And this is actually the dog food preparation. So we're going to smoke it using a driftwood or maybe a cottonwood. And for ourselves, we like to do it a little differently.
Well, now, before you go to the fish salmon strips, what's the final product weight? You start out with a 10-pounder there, but you wind up with a very good dog food that doesn't weigh hardly anything, does it?
Yeah, this only weighs about a pound, and it makes it a lot easier to take out on the trail during the winter months when a hunter would go out trapping.
Now, it's pretty dry and pretty hard, but the dogs will either chew on that or you can stew it up and kind of re-moisten it, boil it, and feed the dogs on the trail. So it's a lightweight dog food. But now we've been talking about the dogs, and you were going to talk about salmon strips, which is really how you make the salmon for people, right, Stacy?
Yes, well, like I said earlier, we like to use the kings or the silvers for ourselves because they taste a little better. And we would then cut it into thin strips and clean it really well. We'd soak them in a nice salty brine and then hang them on the drying rack for about the same amount of time as we would for the dog salmon. Then we would smoke it in the smokehouse using a nice sweet alderwood for ourselves, and it would probably only stay in the smokehouse for about a week to a week and a half, because we like a more jerky texture.
You don't want that real hard, the dogs will put up with a lot, but people like that nice, soft, oily, and rich smoked salmon right off the rack. That is great stuff.
Yeah, the dogs aren't too picky.
Yeah, that's the truth. We thank you. Nice job. We're going to see you again on shore. Can we ask more questions?